Hello, my name is Maria Bezubova and you're at my channel Fertilizers Jazz. Here we talk about events, trends, technologies in the world of fertilizers and agriculture. Please subscribe to the channel, put like to this video, and let's jazz! With today's video, we finalize the mini-series of quarterly discussions with prominent market analysts about different market segments. And today, it will be perhaps the hottest topic of fertilizers market of recent days, and it is about urea, of course. In order to do that, I am happy to host again a super cool guest, Deepika Thapliyal, Deputy Managing Editor of Fertilizers at ICIS. I'm happy to welcome you, Deepika, and thank you very much for joining me today.
Thank you so much, Maria, for having me every time. And even though the goings of the urea market are always hard to fathom, thank you for always taking the time to check with me.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to me. So Deepika, let's start with what happened in the previous quarter, because it was full of events. We lived through extremely turbulent time, of course, during Q2, and the whole commodities market was on fire because of Iran-Israeli escalation. But urea showed the most of volatility because the effect to the supply was, let's say, the largest, and supply of urea was at most risk. Also, internal urea-specific factors added to this turbulence and to this tension. So can you please share your view? What do you think were the most important events that shaped and paved the way actually to Q3?
So like you said, I think on 13th of June, when Israel started those strikes on Iran, that's something nobody could have predicted. I remember on the 12th, we had an Indian tender and there were some traders who had offered. And at that time, the price came out and everyone was like, well, it is much above, it's $10 above expectations. So it's a good price. And this time India should be able to buy a lot. But then the next day, there was this big news. And of course, immediately Israel stops gas supply to Egypt as well. So we had two very big urea producers then out of action. First was Iran, because obviously for security reasons, they shut down production at the urea and ammonia plants. And Iran, as we know, is a huge, huge supplier. In the best of months, they can have more than 400,000 tons to export to, globally, primarily to Brazil, Turkey, and other markets as well. And then we had Egypt, because the gas then stopped from Israel to Egypt. The Egyptian producers had to stop producing immediately. And this came at a time in Egypt when the domestic season is at its peak. So the Egyptians, not only were they exporting, but they also had the pressure to supply to the domestic market. So these two factors, this meant that immediately urea prices shot up. The market that definitely benefited from this was Algeria, because they're a big producer. They're located next to Egypt. So they were able to service a lot of this short-term demand that suddenly creeped in. And we saw prices in Algeria then shooting up to 30-month highs. So big increases coming there, and totally unexpected, because that price in India that I started speaking about, that was $10 more than expectations, then became uneconomical, and nobody was interested to supply to India because that price was too low, and as levels had shot up so much because of the strikes. And then prices kept going up. We touched these highs, and then after that, we have seen the ceasefire come through, and immediately sentiment started to soften. And no big crash in prices, but, you know, sentiment softened. People then started taking time to figure out what they're going to buy. Nobody then paying those big prices of, like, at one point, we saw Algeria go up to $536 per ton FOB. So those prices then not getting repeated again. And then markets started to calm down. And then promptly came another Indian tender, because India didn't get enough volume. And what did we see? Again, prices started to firm. So it's been this volatile ride, which hasn't been easy to either forecast, and even people who are living in it, who sold, who bought, there was a lot of volatility. And at the moment, we're seeing a phase of, after the Indian tender prices firmed, but then they're firmed to such an extent, and because of what has happened, prices are still, I have eased from the Iranian levels, but they're still pretty firm and higher if you look at year-on-year levels. And because of that, we are seeing sort of buyers back away, especially in Brazil, because they're still very high. So affordability comes into question. So we are now in this era of high urea prices at a time when people are wondering if they can afford to buy these prices, because corn and grain prices are, the ratio is not very favorable for farmers. So yeah, a lot of question marks, but we're still at a stage of elevated urea prices.
Yes, definitely. Thank you. It was so interesting quarter. As per your evaluation, how much volume has the market lost? I mean, Egypt and Iran because of this escalation. And obviously, this was the main reason for these prices to elevate and to still stay elevated.
I would say you could estimate anywhere between 400,000 to 500,000 tons, but that's a very high estimate. In that sense, if you calculate now, maybe the Egyptians have to look at the domestic market rather than they look at the global market, because the government will want them to supply the domestic market. So there were volumes lost, but I don't think. At the moment, it's not a case of that the market is short. It's not really short. It is tight. If you need product, you can get product. It's not that because of Iran and Egypt, there's nothing available, because we have to remember that China is back. They are exporting. We have seen them. Numbers are very difficult to get in China, but we have seen them. Again, the exports are below expected, but they have exported between 300 to 400,000 tons in July, maybe about 300,000 tons in June. Now maybe they will get export quotas for another million tons at least till September. So those volumes are there. So it's not like there's a shortage of product. It's just that product is tight. And producers can take their time to decide on who they want to sell to or where they want to sell. But you also cannot deny that at a time when traders are not really stepping in, buyers are not really stepping in, it doesn't talk about, it doesn't really show a lot of confidence on the part of the buyers. The one factor, though, there is India. They have bought 1.5 million tons or so in this latest tender. So that demand will continue to go on. And there will be another tender sometime in August again, because already we read so much in the news about so much shortage of phosphate fertilizer in India. So they cannot, take that risk with urea. So in that sense, if you look at it, I would say product is still tight because India will still keep buying. But again, buying is so thin in any other market. You have to really search. Maybe there's some buying in Australia. Maybe there's some buying in Thailand. But Latin America, who's a big buyer, they're not really stepping in. Brazil can afford to wait till August, September. So all these factors, when you look at it in that sense, supply is tight, but demand is also not really there, except for India, I would say.
I see. Thank you. Thank you very much. If we come back to the situation in Egypt, Egypt, as usually during this period of time, has gas curtailments. At least it happened many times in the past, because domestic consumption for power generation is increasing dramatically during summertime, and fertilizer production suffers. However, this year we know that government has made significant steps toward LNG, like using more and more LNG, purchasing more and more LNG in front of the season, purchasing regasification units, etc. So to make sure that this problem will not happen. So how do you see supply from Egypt in Q3? Were they really able to solve this problem, or not that much, let's say?
I think they have come a long way because they have tried their best. I mean, nobody could have predicted what happened with Israel and Iran. So they got caught out there in terms of gas supply. At the moment, if you see, there are a lot of LNG cargoes at the port, so things are okay. But once those get discharged, once those get used up, I think we need to again look. It's not a case of them not importing enough. I think they've imported enough gas. It's just a case of, is that gas available at the time that they really need it? So I think we cannot rule out that in August there could be some more shutdowns from Egypt. So because of that, that market will continue to stay tight. It's not going to be as big as what we saw last year, but I don't think we can rule out some more shutdowns in August.
I see. Yeah, let's hope that it will not happen, of course, because it will tight the tight market even more. So you touched already on the hottest topic that happened during past 2 weeks. Of course, it is the Indian tender. So I would like to ask you to elaborate more about that, about your reading of the result, because you mentioned 1.5 million, a lot. And also
Yes.
the price. The price is at least much higher versus my own expectation. So how do you read the results?
So the results, I think this tender went out fantastically for buyer India and also for the sellers, because it was a pretty smooth tender. Nothing happened. Nobody bombed anyone. So things were stable at that point of time. And because of that, and also the prices, I think traders offered pretty close to each other. So the prices were pretty much in line, even higher than expected, and everyone matched the numbers. RCF also came in quickly. They were quick to issue counters. They were quick to issue awards, and they found themselves with 1.5 million tons, which is a big volume. It should do them good for now. But I think in general, we estimate that India needs to buy about 2.5 million tons till, say, September. Until January 2026, they would need to buy another 5 million tons. So, because of these reasons, we believe they're not really going to be able to wait forever for the prices. They might wait a little bit for the market to stabilize, some sort of sentiment to ease a little bit, but I don't think they can wait forever. So I think by early August, mid August, we should see another tender because they need to buy. And I think the big factor is there is no DAP in India, or there's such a big shortage of DAP. And there's so many protests already that we read about in the news. So if you see that the government is not going to be to risk anything to happen with urea, because urea is so political as well. So yeah, they will continue to import urea. So that is going to be one market that will keep buying. The monsoon, again, another good year for Indian farmers. So maybe there's even talk of record yields for crops. So for that reason, I think we see very robust Indian demand till end of the year 2025.
Yeah, indeed, indeed. And who will be other markets who will lead, the Q3 demand, who will tight this tight market even more?
I think the next market to watch is Brazil on what happens over there. At the moment, the buyers are not accepting these higher prices, but gradually every week we do see that the price does go up, but there's no liquidity because nobody needs to buy. The farmers are not convinced that they want to buy at such a high price. So what they do is they can just wait a few months. They can wait till August. They can even wait till September. So Brazil is going to be a very interesting market to see what they do, and I think that will determine how things go going forward, because they are such a big buyer apart from India that we need to watch. Of course, there are other buyers who are seasonally buying: Australia, Thailand, other Latin American buyers that need to come in. At one point, Europe will also need to step in around September, October. Things are though dead in these markets, but they're not that big a volume that's going to determine global sentiment. So I think Brazil, and we also need to wait and watch and see what China does with the export volumes. For now, I think they have been very restrained, very disciplined. The government is very particular about how these exports take place. India still is in their banned list. They're not sending anything there. And I think that's primarily because, okay, there could be political factors, but it's primarily because India buys so much. So the government doesn't want to risk at all that, there is any shortage of domestic supply or any domestic supply gets diverted to India for prilled urea. So we watch China, but I think so far China looks like they will actually come on the lower end of expectations.
I see. I see. Thank you. The other topic that was in focus, not only in Q2, but also from the beginning of the year, is tariffs, of course. And there were two parts of this topic, actually. First part is related to the US tariffs, and it has developed a bit in recent days, let's say, because US postponed decisions upon tariffs until now, actually. But then last week, President's administration started to send out letters to certain countries, not to everyone, with, let's say, indications of future tariffs. And Algeria was there also in this list with these letters, with 30% of duty. So nothing changed versus the original, let's say, setup. So do you think, first of all, do you think that it is like a final decision? What is view of ICIS in this case? And how do you think it will finally influence, the balance in the market?
Maria, on tariffs, we've stopped taking a view at all because things change so much and then they don't change at all. So it is a very tough one. But our colleagues were there in Nashville this week. And all they heard there was a lot of talk about the tariffs. And there were people saying that we need to keep an eye on the tariffs, especially what happens, especially with Russia and the Russian trading partners. Because as we know, Russia is the main supplier of urea to the US. The good thing, though, is for buyers, it's coming at the right time. It's the off season. There's no real requirement really right now. People can take their time. And because of this, nobody's really worried. Even at the conference, the feedback that our colleagues got is people say it will adjust. The trade dynamics will adjust. If anything happens to Russia, to Algeria for that matter, they will just be more focused on buying, say, from Nigeria, from the Arab Gulf, from other markets. There are so many options now. There's so many origins that go to the US. So people just felt that trade flows will change and things should stabilize. So nobody's really that worried about these tariffs. And like you say, where will it really come? Will it not come? It's so hard to take a call. But in general, the feeling is, I think buyers have just accepted that prices will stay elevated because anytime there's uncertainty, it's not going to help ease any prices. So yeah, these prices stay elevated. And I think the bigger concern will be UAN because there's so much Russian dependence on that UAN product. For urea, there are still so many options that they can buy from. So it's not going to be much of a issue.
Okay, thank you. Indeed, the second part of this tariff story is about Russia, and this story about tariffs to the US is a very recent one, but the one that happened actually and was put in place and actually came in force in Q2 was tariff to EU. So as of July 1, Russian fertilizers are subject to additional tariffs. How do you see the situation? Have you heard that there were some significant preparations, specifically in terms of urea purchases from Russian suppliers? How market reacted, and what is the plan for urea buyers in Europe?
Actually, we did not see any reaction. We were thinking from 1st of July how difficult it's going to be. It's primarily because the market is dead. I think the minute the tariffs got announced, there was still a few months. People just stepped in, bought as much Russian as they needed, and they stocked themselves well. Now it's off season. So again, it's come at a decent time for the buyers. They are not in any rush. The market is absolutely dead. They can wait a few months, maybe even more than that. So again, there's been no reaction to the fact, only though people do acknowledge that when the season starts, you will see prices actually, the pressure is going to be upwards and prices are going to increase because whenever there's a tariff situation, the Russians are not going to want to sell very cheap. So they might increase their sales. And also they will be then opportunistic sellers to Europe because if any other market is giving them better netbacks, they will go to those markets. At times, though, of course, if nobody else is buying and it's only Europe, their main outlet, they may just take a hit and sell cheaper. So again, uncertainty, which means prices have that upward pressure. And in general, I mean, slowly we're also seeing European production slightly an increase in production. Like at least some plants that were down, the maintenance is over, or they're starting to produce again. So maybe domestic supply will also improve a little bit. But I think European prices will be at a premium to other markets. And again, Nigeria, Arab Gulf, all these markets can look at coming. Even Southeast Asia, we've seen in the past send cargoes to Europe. So those trade dynamics could change a little bit if the Russians prefer to go to Latin America instead of Europe. But I think there is so much volume that comes out of Russia. They cannot ignore Europe. They have to place product there. It's just been going to be a case of either the Russian netbacks will reduce because they take that 40 euro hit in the first year, or we will see that the CFR and the CIF and the FCA prices in Europe will definitely go up because everyone will then start offering higher so that because they have that hit on their netback.
I see. Yeah, thank you. Indeed, it's a question mark how the whole thing will play out because tariffs from all sides at the same time, it's really a significant change for everyone. And how do you see supply from Middle East? Because obviously Middle East producers are the main source for Indian tender, supplying like the largest chunk of that volume. So they will actually be out of product or not? How do you see it?
Actually, the Arab Gulf is the most consistent supplier, I think. They have managed, even during the conflict time a few weeks ago, all the shipments still loaded and they were still, there were no logistical issues that came up. Maybe it could have come up if the conflict lasted for longer, but at least they didn't struggle. So I think for AG, again, for India, it depends on the price. If the price is good, they will place as much as 600 to 700,000 tons of availability, in an Indian tender. And then they only focus on contracts and they have no other spot for any other market. When the price in India is not good, then they look at other markets. And for them, the usual markets are, I mean, they ship everywhere, but it's mainly the US which gets a bulk of their volume. Brazil gets a huge chunk of their volume. So these markets, they will continue to supply, but I think spot availability in the Arab Gulf will definitely reduce because they're going to send more tons to India. And it looks like the way the market is going, that India will continue to pay up. So I think we are going to see a case of AG availability actually being quite limited. Of course, I don't mean there's going to be again any shortage because again, they're a very big producer. They have their contract cargoes that go to the usual markets. They go to Asia, they go to Thailand, they go to Brazil, they go to US. So those tons will keep being supplied on formula. But those extra spot tons, that come in the market, that are going to reduce because most of it will go to India now.
Exactly. Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you as usually for this super insightful discussion. But I would like to finish it with something new that we haven't tried yet, with some small blitz questions, which are more personal rather than fertilizers related, because I think everyone, our viewers, are very much interested to learn more about yourself. So
Nice.
So my first question will be this. After many years already in fertilizers industry, what is that inspires and surprises you the most in the industry?
Oh my God. I think the thing that inspires me the most is the fact that you're always like, striving to do better and to learn the truth and see how the market is going. And it's also linked to what surprises me the most is no day is the same. After like 15 years here, I still learn something new every day. And I think that surprises me. It's also very inspiring because I love it. It keeps it so like it keeps things so interesting. You're not bored ever. And the fact that we're such a global industry, I get to talk to you and you're from Ukraine, and I get to talk to people from all over the world. I get to talk to people from Brazil, from China, from my own home country, India. I love it. I think, yeah, it keeps things so interesting.
Indeed, indeed, fully agree with you. The second question is this. If you can buster only one myth about fertilizers or fertilizers industry, what would that be?
Oh, I think that my one myth is fertilizer is bad. It's bad for everyone. I don't think fertilizer is bad. I think the way people use fertilizer could be bad if they overuse it or they're not careful about how they do things. But fertilizer is not bad. Like I keep saying that 50% of the food we need, that the world needs, would not be there if it was not for fertilizers. So it's not a bad word. It's just how we implement things, as always.
Yes, exactly, exactly. And finally, my final question would be this. How would you explain to a grandma what is your job as an editor in the fertilizers industry?
I have not been able to explain this to my even mom, forget my grandma. So I've failed. I would like to say my job, I'm a price reporter. I mean my job is to find, I'm like the stock market of fertilizers. My job is to find where the real price of the fertilizer is by talking to buyers and sellers and intermediaries like traders. But Maria, I have not succeeded. A lot of people still don't understand what I do.
Indeed, indeed. Thank you so very much again, Deepika, for this super insightful discussion, and that will be, I'm sure, very helpful to all who will be watching this. And let's meet here again in a quarter from now to see how market changes and discuss it again.
Thanks, Maria, and thank you for your patience. And sorry for me going rambling on all this while. So, yeah, next time I would love to do personal questions about you, learn more about you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for watching. As usually, I will leave all credentials of Deepika and ICIS in the comments. Please let me know in the comments which other questions related to urea market you would like me to uncover, and I will be happy to do so with Deepika next time in our next quarterly discussion. Please subscribe to the channel, put like to this video, push the bell in order not to miss any updates, and see you soon.